every PLG company, and this is true whether you started in ZIRP or after, I don't think it's going away, but I think if you start with PLG, you will eventually run into an asymptote of PLG-driven growth alone. And I think the answer of why is sheer math, right? I mean, if you're Facebook, you can go PLG for a very long time because like every single user, every single person in the world that has internet can be a user, right? And so you can literally see exponential math work at the top of the funnel. Like if you had 100,000 people sign up in your first year, you can have 1 million sign up the next year, and then 10 million the year after that, and 100 million, and so on. Obviously, at some point, you saturate like the world's population, but I think it's very different for B2B companies, right? Because, you know, first of all, there's only so many companies out there, right? And second of all, there's only so many companies that will hear about you, will have the proclivity to come and use your product. And I think the viral loops aren't quite the same in B2B as they are in like a Facebook type of like very network affected social graph company. But all that means is like, you know, you might still be growing, but I think there's a natural linearization of every top of funnel. And, you know, this has been described by a few other people. Oliver J., who is the CRO of Asana and before worked at Dropbox, has a post called The PLG Trap. I think roughly, you know, I agree with most of the points, which are PLG is an awesome, you know, kind of way to start, you know, building a product, right? Especially in B2B. Not the least of which because, you know, not only is it a very, very cheap source of, you know, growth and revenue. Like you don't have to worry about like, is my CAC LTV break even, right? Like, I mean, it's like the CAC is zero effectively, right? But additionally, it's almost like it's a forcing function to prove that your product is actually great. Like you have to have true product market fit. Like, you know, there are other types of B2B companies where you can kind of fake it for a while by like aggressively selling a shoddy product to customers. And then, you know, the you know, kind of writings on the wall with churn and so on of like, this is not a sustainable thing. But I think with like a PLG originated business, you have a certain amount of confidence that this is a good product and people like it and people are using it and like, it's not vaporware, right? And so I think it's a really powerful starting point, but I think you then have to connect the dots to ultimately, well, how do we make sure that this is also valuable to the real decision makers within the company? And, you know, at some point you run out of steam with just individual points of light within a large company. You have to go either because you're forced to, because, you know, the CIO is going to ask like, wait, we have like 2,000 seats of this, but scattered across all these different places. Like, how do I make sense of this? And why is this a valuable product to us? You better have a good answer to that. And the more that you can actually elevate as a platform to, you know, offer value add rather than just sell on the FUD of, well, if you don't pay for the enterprise license, you're not going to have control over all this usage. If you can actually elevate to a value add sale where it's like, we give you end-to-end connectivity between all these different groups that were working in silos, and they're able to move faster, and it can be centrally managed but also locally iterated on, and execs get end-to-end visibility over this really important, you know, and process, right? You know, I can see all of my store openings as a restaurant franchise, and every single stage of that is managed in one place. And so I can see literally the end to end. It's like, you know, the ultimate 10,000-foot view of my business. That's compelling, right? And that's CEO sellable, not to mention CIO, CFO, COO sellable. And so, you know, I think if you can make that transition to also, you know, almost like ride the wave of PLG, but then instead of like waiting for the wave to like, you know, flatten out, you know, jump up to that bigger narrative of like, and also we are strategically important to executives. And here's our story as a enterprise level platform, then I think you can really, you know, kind of win it all, right? I mean, that's my belief. So PLG is fine. It's a great starting point, in fact, but, you know, I don't think it's just ZIRP, although ZIRP certainly fueled an extension of that PLG runway. But I think it would have flattened out for every PLG company regardless. It would have linearized at some point or another just because of sheer math. Mm-hmm. Like you cannot keep doubling, tripling, 10xing, or even, you know, 30%ing the top of funnel indefinitely in B2B.